Thanks for tuning in to Seven Figure Fitness Business. Now, this week, I'm joined by both my partners, Andrew G and Iggy. Iggy has only been on one episode before, and because he is an absolute master at systems, today we want to take advantage of that. And what we're going to be discussing on today's episode is how you can use or implement systems into your business to create freedom. And that's freedom in the sense of your business and also your personal life. Freedom can relate to time, it can relate to geography, being able to travel, and it can also relate to financial freedom as well. So on the episode today, we're going to be discussing a number of those things in detail. Now, Iggy, how do you use systems so effectively to create freedom in your business?
Systems are like, for me, they're like everything when it comes to freedom, leverage, buying your time back, being efficient. And I think that like the birth of my love for systems comes from kind of like a deep laziness that I have. You know, I'm a hard worker, but I hate wasting energy, right? I hate wasting time. I hate wasting effort. So my thinking from a young age is always like, how can we do things as efficiently as possible? And that beautifully translates into business because systems allows you to be efficient in your business, allows you to have leverage, and it allows you to have freedom and flexibility in how you can approach things and how aggressively you can do things and how aggressively you can scale.
I feel it a little bit like a video game almost. Like when we're talking about systems, I'm like, okay, well, the task that I was doing yesterday, I don't want to be doing anymore. And you get to move up those levels. And, you know, whether it's a system that you're passing on to another staff member, or whether it's more like an automation that you can, you know, using a computer or a software or a piece or a tool to actually implement, you know, that feeling of just being able to move up that ladder.
Yeah, I think as well, like in business, there's always going to be things that you have to do that you don't want to do. And they're typically the things that you want to create a system for the fastest, right? You know, if you can create a system so that it can either make it more efficient so you don't have to do as much manual labor in that area, you can do it better. Or otherwise, if the time is right, you can actually give that off to somebody else to do instead of yourself.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, when they think of systems, they think like software, right? That's like the first thing that people think of when they think of systems. And I think like understanding systems really boils down to really understanding like the basic definition of it, which is like the basic definition of a system is just like a written procedure that outlines how you're going to do something. Right. So if you have it written down how you're going to do something, you have the framework for a system. And so that's something that you can essentially delegate to people. That's something that you can essentially delegate to or automate or have people do on your behalf, but you need structure in how it's going to be done, right? There needs to be a standardized procedure on how it's going to be done. So when I think about systems in business, if you are able to write down how everything needs to be done in your business, you can effectively have somebody else do it. Even if you don't have any software whatsoever, so long as you have people, you can leverage systems with people and essentially create freedom for yourself. That's kind of how I think about systems. It's like going down to the basics, having like a set procedure on how you're going to do things and have it actually written down. And then thinking about what can I leverage to do this on my behalf, right? Whether it's automations, softwares, or are there people out there that I can find that can do this for me at a cheaper rate? That's a system in of itself, is finding people to do shit for you that you don't feel like doing.
Yeah, I do want to talk about leverage. I think that's such a powerful thing because, you know, on the front end, when I'm talking to people about our program, you know, the two main things that people seem to want help with is going to be either the marketing and the lead gen. And we know that the fitness industry has a big problem with that. But the other thing is basically like not having enough time or not knowing how to create those systems so their business can run smoothly. And, you know, there's a lot of people I speak to that they're already feeling like they're on that hamster wheel. They're putting in a lot of work and they're really not helping that many people. They might be helping like 20 people and they feel like they're nearly tapped out. So I know that a lot of the time people are very intrigued about how they can have more impact and have more value in their business whilst not having to spend so much time that they do feel stuck. How do you guys, find that you can use systems or implement systems, whether it's for us or our clients, into a business to free up that time and improve that leverage?
I mean, it kind of boils down to where you're starting, right? So if you're starting, and there's two ways that you can start, right? You can start a business leveraging your time and sweat equity, or you can start a business leveraging cash. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, having cash to start a business is going to be the fastest way for you to create leverage and have systems to maximize your time. Why? Because you can essentially have the money to buy the systems that you need and then have the cash to hire people to run the business for you versus, so it's kind of depend on where you're at. So if you're starting by yourself, right, and you're a solopreneur at the beginning and just putting in a lot of sweat equity, what you need, because you're cash poor, you need efficient systems and automations that you can leverage that's going to allow you to maximize the amount of things and the amount of tasks that you can juggle on your one plate until you have enough cash so you can start to hire people to remove certain tasks off your plate. So it's like identifying your starting point and really breaking down like what are like the most essential. That's kind of like what comes to mind when I think about, okay, how do we start leveraging systems? Is really based on, are you a one-man show, or do you have some like $20,000 in the bank you can leverage? Because if you have 20K in the bank you can leverage, we can build a pretty substantial business very quickly and have the systems.
Interesting industry, isn't it? It's a very interesting industry because it's one of the few industries in the world where you don't actually need to leverage cash. And I think that's what's so appealing to it. Like about it, as a personal trainer, you can go into the park, you can set up a session, and you can get paid for that session without actually having any cash, right? Just purely your education. And the same applies in the online world, is that you can go out, you can set up a business, you can start charging people for your services. So I think that that's something that's super, super appealing to most people. And, I think that a lot of our listeners are going to be going out there and they're going to be setting up on their own, and they're going to be doing things on their own. And I suppose like being a sole trader is great. The return, the amount of money that you're making is good, but it's going beyond that point. It's going beyond the point where, people reach capacity, they become full. And it's then that next step to be able to go, okay, well, how do I earn more money using less of my time, right, Iggy?
Yep. And once you're at that point, that's where, if you don't want to hire somebody yet, you need some type of like automation in place, because I promise you, there are repetitive tasks that you're doing right now in your business, if you're doing it by yourself, that you can immediately automate. And so when it comes to really figuring out, okay, what are some things that I can take off my plate? Here's kind of like some questions that I'll ask myself when I'm thinking about like, what essential systems or what kind of automations do I need to do? Like, what do I need to build? So these are like the questions that I'll ask myself. I'll go like, okay, what do I repeatedly do in my business? What am I constantly doing over and over and over again? What are the same repetitive tasks that I'm doing? And then I'm looking like, how much of my time is being spent doing that repetitive task? And then my next question is there a software that can do that task for me? So I'll go on Google and start Googling like different softwares and seeing, okay, what can do this task? Are there softwares or is there technology that somebody's invented that can do this task for me? And then essentially start figuring out how I can leverage different softwares and different technology to do the task that I'm constantly repeatedly doing. All right. Perfect example was I used to send out custom made nutrition plans to my clients in the beginning. Right. And I used to go in, manually write out the nutrition plans, manually build out the macros, manually help them find recipes and things like that. And got to a point where, like, man, this is consuming so much of my time. I'm going to give you guys a little nugget. One of the first softwares that I used to automate the nutrition for my clients was called Eat This Much. I was like, is there a software? Like, I was just randomly Googling. I was like, is there a software that can freaking automate like some of this nutrition shit that I'm doing for my clients all day long? Like, this is consuming hours of my time every day, especially as we start to enroll more clients. So I looked on Google and I was like, holy shit, there's a software that will literally do what I was manually doing for hours on end. And it would do it. And I set it up once, and then it'll automate the delivery for weeks on end for my clients. So that's like when I first got a taste of what it felt like to find technology that can do shit that I was doing constantly, repeatedly in my business. All right. So that's one of like the first question. What are you repeatedly doing that can potentially be automated and leveraged using technology?
Just before we move on from that, Iggy, can I ask as well, because a lot of the people, that might be listening to this, they probably don't even necessarily use like some software that can help them do those things. So what do you currently recommend as being the best option?
I think the first thing that they'll need to do, if you're like if you're still in like the Stone Ages using Google Docs and spreadsheets to run your online fitness business, like you need to knock that shit off like now. There's no leverage in that at all.
We did that at the beginning.
You need to find a training software that you can actually use and that you can leverage. Like we use PTD, but like you need something that you can leverage that's going to allow you to essentially automate the delivery of your service that you're delivering to your clients. Like that's the first thing you got to do, is like you got to use something to deliver what you're actually coaching.
So
clients.
PTD, that's PT distinction. So with PT distinction, like what are some of the most powerful things that it actually allows somebody to do? Just so that, people have context here.
It allows somebody to automate the delivery from top to bottom. There is a steep learning curve. Like I had to like legit spend months studying the software, studying the ins and out of it, to the point where I can really understand like how powerful it could be used. If you're a technophobe, don't go and get it. Like you need to go through one of our free trainings or something just to understand like the basics on what you need. But it would literally allows you to automate every single aspect of your delivery. When I say every single aspect, I mean to the point where we have a high ticket fitness program that we sell with no coaching whatsoever. And people feel like they're being coached throughout the entire process.
So we're talking nutrition, exercise, mindset. If you wanted to do like stretching, all that kind of stuff, that can all be plugged in.
Everything.
Yeah.
Shoot, our clients get like a daily motivational text message from their coach that makes them feel like, wow, like this person is really like there for me every single day. And it's not like Trainerize where it's like you get this generic message. Like you can tailor it to where people really feel like they're getting a personalized message from you every single day. It's crazy.
Yeah. So PTD is definitely a very powerful system. I don't know about yourself, like, cause you're definitely a systems guy as well. Both of you are. So like what sort of major systems, whether it's one or two, like what have you embedded into hypothyroid body transformation, our fitness business, to make sure that it runs more smoothly?
I think it's, like I'll take it back a little bit. Like when I was in the personal training industry, I used to do everything completely manually. It was just like, I'd be filling out people's programs. I'd be writing them up individually for everybody. When it came to their nutrition plans, I would be getting people to complete MyFitnessPal. And on MyFitnessPal, I'd then look at their food. So, while I was booking people in at a really high hourly rate, like I'd book them in for half an hour and I'd be charging them about $60. That half an hour wasn't actually half an hour. It was more like an hour per client, right? So instead of earning the $120 an hour I thought I was earning, I was actually earning more like $60 an hour after all things taken into account. It was probably actually even less. And that's one of the hidden things about personal training. You look at the hourly rate that you get and, you think, oh, wow, that's really good. But there's so many, disguised things. And I think the biggest system of all of this is actually the process of going online itself. Because all of a sudden, instead of requiring your time, for you to actually go and speak to people, you're actually able to create more impact with more people. And I suppose that's why hypothyroid body transformation began, right? It's like, hey, I wanted to help women who were struggling with thyroid problems, who'd gone through, a similar journey of like myself with, in that situation. And then it was at being able to reach more people. And then, it's like when we first started bringing on a whole bunch of those clients, it was like, we didn't have a system in place. I know that, pretty much we didn't even have a program at the time. That's how unorganized we were. We didn't even have a program. And I remember like week to week, you'd be sitting there, being the nutritional guru that you are, writing out every step of the way, the actual program week by week, just so we could deliver it to them on time.
Well, I know like one of the things that was huge when it came to hypo was ultimately we had a very manual process for reviewing food diaries. And so what we quickly created to alleviate that was a food diary review system that was called the highlighting system. And it was really just based on some simple things where whether it was us doing it or our staff, and of course we wanted it to transition to our staff doing it as quickly as possible so that, I could focus on the sales and you could focus on the marketing. But really it just taught them how to run a system. So it made it easier to hire, easier to train, and then easier to deliver that advice from our coaches to our clients. That was a huge change, and then we improved it even more recently with your Loom review system where we can basically give a really good review of someone's food diary in like, well, I think it's about 3 minutes or 4 minutes that it averages per person. That's insane leverage. Whereas it used to take bloody ages to do that, and it didn't feel very personalized. We've been able to get improvements there in results, that feeling of connection between us and our members, but also just time. So, it's a huge system that had a great impact for us.
Yeah. I think these systems have to be of quality, right? There's all very well bringing in a system, but at the same time, it actually has to get equal results to you giving up your time. And I think that was one of the issues when we first introduced, originally, the traditional way is you call up every single client, you speak to them for half an hour, you waste all of your time, right? But, I think the first thing we implemented was reviewing people's food diaries. But when we were reviewing them via text and we were messaging back our feedback, that wasn't quite good enough as us giving up our actually calling them on the phone. So what happens when that happens? What happens is people, they don't pay you. They put in complaints about the program because the perceived value is less. But as soon as we implemented something like the Loom videos, which, just to explain, it's pretty much where we record a video of a screen share of us giving feedback of the food diary, just like we're next to them. They see a big, the trainer's big smiling face, talking to them and, motivating them. No longer do we actually need to call people anymore. We can just rely on the fact that we've got a system that is actually better, because calling someone takes up a lot of time. You've got to schedule the call. Both people have to show up, things have to be on time. And by the all said things said and done, if you schedule a 15-minute call with a client per week, it's even, 15 minutes it's more like half an hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah. They're turning into therapy sessions if you don't know what you're doing. Turn into hour-long conversation.
Or just talking about the weather, right?
Yeah. What I loved about this is, systems break and they're not bulletproof. But, when you create a system like that, only, a couple of people sort of slip through. And then what that actually means, because you've actually got that well-leveraged system, you can actually give more attention to the people that are really struggling. They feel like they're sinking. We use that in fitness. We use it in the mastermind as well. We have mastermind, systems that allow us to help the members on a really high level. But if someone is struggling, we notice that we can really shift a huge amount of resources in the form of time and support to make sure that they get the help they need. I love that about systems, because it helps you identify people that are doing well with the system and those who aren't, because there's a consistency. You can see results, and you get to almost benchmark those results, and really, people that are struggling, and sometimes you will struggle. Those people stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, absolutely. And like when you have like proper systems in place, it allows you to eliminate human error, right? As much as possible. You're never going to eliminate human error, because systems break. Like even with us, some of our systems like break all the time. It's so annoying. But even then, when it does break, we know what to fix. And oftentimes it's a quick fix. It's fine tuning, it's updating certain things and making sure certain procedures are up to date as the business grows and evolves. Whereas like when you have systems that are heavily dependent on manual work from the individual, then you're subject to somebody having a bad day. You're subject to somebody like forgetting to do stuff. You're subject to all these different things. So that's why when you have a proper system in place that you eventually start to outsource and you start to grow your team, having those systems in place allow you to be able to really minimize the amount of human error and then the number of variables you have to account for. Right cool. Now, instead of your coaches creating things from scratch, they're just coaching clients through your system. They're supporting clients through your system. They're supporting clients through this mechanism that you built, versus them having to recreate the wheel and you having to worry about them doing something wrong or forgetting to include something or things like that.
If you don't have systems in place, as soon as, you want to go away on a holiday or you're sick, everything breaks straight away. So it's so critical to have some form of leverage. Otherwise your business literally halts. It comes to a, screeching stop.
Yeah. I mean, freedom, like I said this earlier, freedom is a word that I hear so many people use when they discuss their goals for their business, right? They want freedom. And you don't really have freedom if you don't have a system, because usually what we'll see is that the business owner, they've got everything up here, and that's all well and good, but that means that the business is 100% reliable on you. You take a day off, you might as well work in a gym, because your business can't run without you. It doesn't matter whether you can run your business from your laptop. You can't take a day off, right? So
Exactly.
you need to be in a position where you can actually afford to step away at times and have other people, and they may or they may not do as good a job as you, but if they can keep things going, or if the system can just run itself for a day, or longer. That's really what you're looking at, is you don't have freedom unless you've got the ability to do that.
What are the things in business that you absolutely hate? The bottom of the barrel tasks that that you just should not be doing?
I absolutely hate administrative stuff, and I hate HR. They're the things, like for me, I hated being on the phone to organizations that had you listening to that stupid, waiting song, and HR and administration for me is just torture. I can't stand it.
And that's a pretty easy fix. It's just like having a person in place who is able to do that for you, because that's a task anyone can do. And your task of genius is sales, and making sales for, high ticket prices, like really high ticket prices.
Yeah.
So anything that takes you away from that and having to call up, administration and talk to HR, that's just like something you should never be doing.
And it's not even just about effectiveness. It's actually about lifestyle enjoyment. I genuinely hate doing those things. It really sucks my energy. And, everyone knows this. If you spend an hour, think about it in the gym, right? If you're working with personal training clients, I'm sure we've all experienced this. We used to have those clients that you'd be like, yes. And didn't matter how tired you were feeling, by the end of that session, you felt amazing. And then you had those clients you were like, oh, here we go. And then by the end of that session, you just felt like you're about to pass out, kind of thing. Things that we like doing, they always bring us energy, and things that we hate doing, they suck it. So if you want to get the most out of yourself, you do need to kind of try and create systems to eliminate or minimize those tasks you don't like as much as possible.
Yeah. I know for me, one of the things that I wanted to get myself out of in the business was prospecting. And so before I even took a profit from the business, as soon as we turned a profit and the cash flow was enough to cover hiring a VA to do all the prospecting for us, I did it immediately, right? Because I was like, I don't care about taking a profit. I'm okay being at a loss or even break even if it meant not having to do this one task and being able to focus on a high level task.
I think there's a lot of pain associated with prospecting. A lot of the listeners are personal trainers, and they'll have been told to wander around the gym floor, right? The most manual thing you can possibly do, putting yourself out there and pretty much walking up to some stranger, someone you don't even know, and say, it's like a cold DM. It's like,
it is. It's exactly what it is.
Free session.
Yeah. Someone's got the headphones on. You have to go they're like,
I'm taking you.
It's like no leverage at all. And that's one of the things that, one of the first things that the highest leverage system that personal trainers or people looking to go online, they can have in their business is lead generation, having a solid acquisition system in place that provides you leverage in attracting leads, vetting them and all those different things. That's the first thing that somebody needs, because leads is essentially, it's kind of like the blood, right? The lifeline of your business. You could be the best salesperson, but if you have nobody to sell to, you're not making any money.
Yeah. So, a great example of this and, the pain that can be associated with this, guys, is, so we've got Grant, who's one of our amazing members at the moment. And I remember distinctly, he started about 8 weeks ago, and he's just on a 31K week. Now, when I spoke to him, his business was doing well. He didn't have a shitty business, right? The pain that he experienced was, I hate doing the things that I'm doing to the level that I have to do them again and again and again. It's mind numbing. What he needed, and he was very clear about it, was systems. And it was just a matter of whether we had the systems for him that he needed. And I know he's been extremely happy, because he's earning more money now because, than what he was doing previously, because he has more time to focus on the things that drive him forward the most. He felt like he was stuck in that hamster wheel, and he's been able to alleviate that and focus on more important tasks.
Yeah. And he's been over the moon, especially a guy like him. He was in a great position where he was a great example of somebody who built or tried growing his business using kind of the Stone Age method, where a lot of the things that you're doing is manual. Right. And I can imagine a lot of trainers here and listening to this are in that situation where they're thinking, this is how you know if you need systems, or if your systems that you're using right now is grossly outdated. If the thought of bringing on 30 new clients freaks you out and you're like, you just feel overwhelmed just at the thought of having to deliver to that many people in a short period of time, then your systems suck. Like then you have absolutely no leverage whatsoever. Like your systems suck if you are overwhelmed with just having to service like 30 people at a time.
Yeah. If your goal is money, you're not going to make enough money. You're going to get stuck. If your goal is impact, guess what? You're not going to help as many people. You're going to get stuck, right? If your goal is to have freedom geographically, you're not going to be able to do that, because if you don't have systems, you're going to get stuck. At every step of the way, system is going to create leverage and freedom.
Exactly. So just kind of crazy. I know, like, and it kind of ties into why we even call our business Systems by Design, because I remember we're having a conversation and we can trace back, you know, a lot of the success that we're able to have in our own businesses as a result of having actual systems to help us run our businesses.
That's how we bonded. That's how we met, Iggy. It's like we were bonding. Like, you know, you're a coach in a program that I signed up to at the time. And then, you know, it was more than that, because I'd share the systems I was using, you'd share the systems you were using, and then we'd like, our minds would work together and we'd create this super system.
Exactly. And that's like the most incredible aspect of it is like, if I was to try and replicate like a lot of systems that I use now in my own business, as far as like our acquisition I got from you. So imagine if we were to actually go back and try, and there would be no way for me to be where I am if I tried to recreate the systems that we have in our businesses from scratch all by myself.
Well,
It'd be impossible.
I've got to say something, because before that, I used your system, right? So, you know, if we look back at it, I actually came to you for help at one stage and paid you as a coach to teach me your system. And then I learned your system, I used it, then we became business partners and I gave you back my system. So
Exactly.
there's this relationship of like pay. And then eventually we came up with the behemoth.
Like, why don't we just
everybody?
Like, exactly. We're like, why don't we just do this shit together? Like, you know, and then AP came in with his sales system, but essentially like the definition of the system is perfectly like embodied in like the enrollment process that we have in place for our clients. Even in sales, you may, some people think they don't need systems in sales, but it's like, if you want to be able to convert consistently, you absolutely need structure and you actually need a detailed process in place, a system to be able to enroll clients as well. So
AP, what happened before we had a script?
Hell, it was a nightmare. I mean, just like the main thing that I hated was, you know, so much time spent training staff that may not even work out. Our conversions were worse. Our calls took longer. Those are two very detrimental things. It took a long time to find good salespeople, and they had to be of a much higher standard when they came in because they leaned so heavily on my manual training. What happened now is that we have a very repeatable process. You know, if you look at our sales stats, I mean, basically for about the last 12 weeks or more, our stats have remained consistently between about 65 and 75%. That's the level of consistency that we have as a team. And you can only get that if you have a repeatable model. By having a short, powerful process that everybody can follow to an extent, everything becomes a lot easier and more powerful, really.
I know in marketing, you know, there's the element of this as well. It's like, as you spend more and more, and our budget's just been moving higher and higher and higher, it seems to be rapidly exiting very, very quickly. There's a diminishing return on Facebook, right? So Facebook will charge you more if you spend, you know, more money. So we have to keep on improving the game. Every time we go to level up, we get charged more and more money. So the only way of leveling up is to test more and more things. So, you know, we have a system in place. Like I have an employee, my guy, Manny, and, you know, we're testing, you know, in terms of combinations of ads, probably like 300, 400 different combinations per week, so that we're always optimizing and finding the best thing. You know, that's effectively what marketing is. But, you know, my time needs to be spent thinking about numbers, running the business, right? And I've got him in place, and he's actually going to go through and, you know, find those combinations, set them up in Ads Manager, because that for me is something that does my head in. I've spent so much time in Ads Manager, but if I was in there every single day, entering in every single photo, entering in every single piece of copy, it would take us forever and we wouldn't be able to maximize our return on investment.
when people are in the mastermind, one of the things that they've often said is like, this is seriously like crazy, the amount of systems you guys have. And I think one of the reasons why that happens, it's not because we didn't create this amazing mastermind program. What we did was we took all the stuff that we were doing in our own businesses and we've basically plugged that into a mastermind and kind of like pulled back the curtains. And that means that we don't get people saying, hey, like, I'm having this problem, like this broke, what do I do? And we're like, what would you do? We're like, well, this is exactly the system that we use in that thing. Have this system, it's going to make a difference. And then we make sure that they test the results to see that they actually get the desired outcome that we had, right? So, we're not making stuff up. The fact that I have a sales system now that allows me to train people to be very high quality salespeople, as long as they have a reasonable level of communication skills. If I can do that in our business when we hire someone in less than a month, then there's absolutely no reason why I can't do that for our mastermind members in the program. And I'm just not having to make a system that's only designed for a mastermind. We're inputting exactly what we used to train our own team, our own staff, to maintain and upkeep our staff. That's the same stuff that we're using in the mastermind. And I know you guys do that in marketing, and I know we do it in fulfillment as well.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing about it, is because we've streamlined our own businesses so much, where it's essentially become the ultimate asset for our mastermind. And the nice thing about like having like the consistency with the systems is that you're not guessing what needs to be changed if you're not getting the results that you want. It's not a guessing game, right? Because there's structure, because there's systems, and there's like a predictable input that should create a predictable output. Because there's this flow, right? We can actually go in and diagnose and find bottlenecks very quickly. We can totally expose the real issues on why clients aren't making money if they aren't making money. So there's a lot of cool things that happen, right? When you have a proper system that's proven and tested, it exposes the real issues in your business. And now you're no longer having to guess, what do I need to fix? Why am I not doing this? Why am I not getting the results? What levers do I need to pull to take my business to the next level? We can break it down to a science where it's like, this is exactly where the bottleneck is in your business. This is what you need to focus on. And I think that's what's so awesome about having systems in your business, is it gives you that control to find a problem, but then it puts you in the driver's seat in the sense that you actually get to diagnose a problem and be able to work on fixing it, right? Whereas a lot of people nowadays, they have no idea what they need to fix. They don't know why they're not getting clients. They don't know why they're not getting bookings. They don't know why they're not making any sales. They don't know why their clients aren't getting results, because they have no structure. They have no system. They have nothing in place to be able to measure themselves against, to figure out what needs to change and how can it be improved.
Gee, I've heard you say this a number of times. It's like, something's broken for us, right? Because a system allows you to control variables, you've often said, we're not going to change too many things at once because we don't know what the problem is, right? So systems, that's part of the magic of systems, is because they improve consistency, of the way that you do things. When something does break, you can actually make changes by having controlled variables. You can actually, it's not like just, throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. You can do more of like a sniper approach, where you can like knock out one thing. Okay, that wasn't it. Knock out this thing. And it really does make a big difference when you do want to make changes or repair problems.
Yeah. And this comes down to tracking your numbers, knowing where your business is. And, for most businesses, like, when you've got a real legitimate business, that's bread and butter. It's just being able to read data and be able to make decisions about what you're doing. And, one of the things that we implement both for ourselves and for all of our clients is a tracking sheet. And that tracking sheet, effectively, you put in your data. So you find out, okay, for example, as simple as, how many sales calls did you have? What was your conversion percentage? Is your conversion percentage meeting KPI? When it comes to your Facebook ad at the start, how much are you paying per person to start a conversation with you? Are you meeting KPI? And all the way up and down the funnel, whether it's your landing page, whether it's your message conversations, we can then use that to determine what is the weakness in your business, what is the bottleneck, and give you very clear advice and say, hey, this is what you need to focus on. You suck at, your landing page sucks. Go spend a week trying to fix that. And your conversion rate on that landing page is 5%. Get it up to 25%, and you're going to have 5 times more people go through the funnel, and you're going to make 5 times more sales.
Now, guys, exactly. I know we're literally leaving this on a really good spot right now, but we are going to be running out of time soon. So we might even sort of potentially continue the conversation in the next episode. Was there anything really important that either of you wanted to finish on?
I think we've got a lot more to discuss about this. So, I think this is part 2 coming at you next week.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need to do a part 2 on that, because I know for sure people are going to want to hear more about as far as like what all goes into the system that we use and things like that. So
yeah, I think definitely
just have to stay tuned for the next episode.
Yeah, guys. Or thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.